Hi you guys, and welcome to our paint night tonight. My name is Marissa and I'm going to be walking you guys through a little watercolor tutorial. So, I am so excited to get started. I wanted to introduce myself beforehand. Like I said, my name is Marissa and I actually graduated from USU last year with my Bachelor's of Science in Drawing and Painting. I currently work at a studio called Imagine This. I am the lead artist there and I teach art classes like this. And currently I am also the art coordinator for Avalon Hills. And I love painting, I love watercolor, so I'm really excited to be here with you guys. So you guys know, at the end of the paintings, I want you guys to take a photo and email your paintings to our senator. It's going to be in the comments below, his email, and we are going to be giving out prizes to our favorite paintings. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get started. So this is the painting that we are going to be going over right here. This is my watercolor painting that I did, and I'll be walking you guys through step by step. Before we do that though, I am going to be showing you guys just some basic watercolor skills if you do decide that you want to do your own painting. So we're just going to jump right into those watercolor skills. For right now, I am just going to be using a paintbrush, some water, of course my paint, and then I'm using a towel rather than a paper towel, but a paper towel will work. And we're just going to start going in here. So the first technique that I want to show you guys is called wet on wet. So I'm going to get my paintbrush in the water and I'm going to get it pretty wet. And I'm going to come over here. This is just my practice paper for now, and we'll go into doing the actual painting a little bit later. But we're just going to practice for a minute. So I'm going in, I'm getting an area pretty wet. Okay. You might have to kind of move your head so that you can see the shimmers. We're going to pick a color. Let's do some blue. So when I come over here, I'm going to be tapping it in and see how it's spreading like that. So that is a really nice touch, makes it look marbled, and you'll notice that the paint will not go outside of the little water bubble that you've made. To add in another color in here, just for fun. So this is a really nice technique. We're going to be using it a lot for the background of our painting. It's also nice for if you're painting water, if you're painting the sky. Alright, so that is wet on wet. I'm next going to show you wet on dry. So instead of getting the area wet beforehand, we're just going to jump right in with some water. I'm going to grab some paint. This is going to give us a lot more control. It's not spreading everywhere like the wet on wet was. Okay. Combining these two techniques, again, another little skill that we're going to be using quite often in the painting I'm going to walk you through, is I am going to start with wet on dry. I'm going to have a little bit of wet on wet here, and I'm going to pull down this color. So we have it nice and clean at the top, but then it's marbly down here and it's flowing nicely. So again, that's a technique that we're going to be using in our little tutorial here quite often. Another technique that we won't be using, but is still good to know, especially if you want to do your own painting, is dry on dry. Now my paintbrush is a little bit damp just because we've been using it, and the paint that I'm going to be using, again, it needs to be a little bit damp for it to be activated. We're just going to use a tiny bit. And this dry on dry, we're going to be able to see a lot of the texture going on in here. So again, we're not going to be using this technique in the tutorial that I will be giving you, but of course you guys are more than welcome to do your own painting, and if you want to have some nice texture in there, that's a nice way to get some. So there are 4 different consistencies that I am going to be referring to throughout this painting, and that is tea, coffee, milk, and butter. So tea consistency is going to be mostly water. We're going to just barely have a little bit of color in here. So I'm not sure how well that is showing up. It's mostly just showing up as a glimmer right now. But this is our tea consistency, where it's mostly water and we just have a little bit of a color here. Okay, so that's our first consistency that I'm going to be referring to. The second one is our coffee consistency. It's going to be just as runny as the tea consistency, but we're going to have more of a solid color. So we're going to have more pigment than we do in the tea consistency. Okay, so you see how we have a brighter color in there. So that's our coffee consistency. Our next consistency is our milk consistency. So again, each time we're just adding a little bit more pigment and less water. So this consistency is going to give us nice strong color, a little bit more milky. There is our third consistency, and then our fourth consistency is going to be butter. And I'm going to do my best to use just the smallest amount of water that I can and just really load my brush on with the pigment here to get our butter consistency. So I think I could even go in and make that paint a little bit thicker. Okay, so again, these are the 4 consistencies that I'm going to be referring to, but you can see that it changes the amount of water that I have. We'll make the pigment brighter, or we'll make it lighter or darker. A tip with watercolor is you want to work with the lightest colors first. So especially when we go into this painting, we're going to be working from the background forward, starting with the lighter colors and then layering on the darker colors. All right, of course we want to remember to have some good brush care, bringing my brush back and forth on the bottom of my cup and then drying it off. And then I'm not going to leave my brush in the water when I'm not using it, because that actually separates the glue and it can lead to the brush hairs falling out. Okay, so this is just quick basics of watercolor, and we are going to put this aside and I'm going to be walking you guys through my painting. All right, so the materials that the university has provided is everything that we are going to need. If you have your own materials, that's great. I have a couple of extra materials that I brought with me that are optional, but I think might be nice for you guys to have. I have some tape here. I have some painter's tape that I've just already put around. This, again, it's optional. If you have some masking tape lying around, that will be great. Just make sure that you put it on your jeans first to get a little bit of the stickiness off, or else it's going to rip your paper. So if you have tape nearby and you want to put that on, that is great. Go ahead and do that. The other thing that I'm going to be using that wasn't provided is a pencil. I'm using a 4H pencil, but any normal pencil will do. We just want to be able to go really lightly. And then I also have a kneaded eraser. Again, it doesn't have to be a kneaded eraser. It can be any eraser that you have lying around. This is just what I have brought. So again, these are totally optional, but I think it would help with your painting if you have them lying around your apartment. Then I'll give you guys a second to grab those items. Just gonna have my painting here as a reference as we go in. I want you guys to be able to feel like this is your own painting. So if you want to change colors, if you want to add a sunset, change the color of the mountains, you're more than welcome to do that. Please do that. Make it your own. We are different people, and so our paintings aren't going to look exactly the same. I bet you that my painting is going to come out different than it did this time. So just have fun with it and let it kind of find itself. I find with watercolor that it's so nice and flowy that sometimes the unexpected happens. As Bob Ross says, no accidents, only happy, I'm sorry, there are no accidents, only happy mistakes. I am forgetting the saying, but you guys are going to be putting it in the comments below, I hope, so I can remember what it is. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our pencil here, and I am just going to be very, very lightly sketching out some mountain ranges. So I'm not quite sure if you guys are going to be able to even see it on the camera because I'm doing it so lightly. And you can choose if you want to have really rocky mountains or rolling hills, if you want to make it look like Logan Canyon. Okay. Again, very, very lightly on here. There are no mistakes, only happy accidents. That's what it is. That's what the saying is, you guys. I'm not going to worry about adding details like the trees. I'm just doing the mountain outline for now. Okay, so again, I am going to be following exactly how I did this painting, but you guys are more than welcome to change it up however you would like. All right, now that I have that pretty lightly drawn on, I'm going to take my kneaded eraser and I'm actually going to be picking it up so it's as light as it can go. Once you put the watercolor over the pencil, it's going to seal it. So we want it to be, we still want to be able to see the pencil so we can use it as a reference, but we want it to be light enough that we won't be able to see it through the watercolor. So in a perfect world, the way that I would show you guys this painting is to wash over all of it in blue and then wait for it to dry and then add layers on top of each other. But I'm going to show you guys a modified version, which is how I did this, just to help with time. If you have a hairdryer at home that you want to use, that you want to just cover this all in a nice light blue and then, you know, dry it off completely and then layer on, you're more than welcome to. But I'm just going to be showing you guys this modified version to help with time. All right, so I have it on there lightly enough so that I can see it and I know what I'm doing, but it's, again, it's not going to show up through the paint. Okay, so our first consistency, remember how we went over the tea, coffee, milk, and butter? I'm going to grab my paintbrush and we are going to be doing a tea consistency for this background. And again, since we don't necessarily have the time for it to completely dry, I am going to leave a tiny bit of white space right above my pencil lines so that when I paint in my mountains, it's not going to bleed into each other. Excuse me. So we're doing wet on wet, so I'm just getting some water on here. I haven't got my pigment on quite yet, but we are going to be doing a tea consistency. All right, I'm going to pick up a little bit of blue here. So again, very, very light. We'll play around with some more values once this dries. So again, just for time's sake, I'm leaving a tiny bit of dry space in between the sky and the mountains. I think it almost gives this effect like it looks like there's mist, which I thought was really pretty. If you ever feel like you have too much pigment, not to worry. You can just grab your towel and just lightly dab. That might be a fun way to create some clouds as well, to have a couple of places that are dabbed with your towel. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that there to dry. Again, if you have a hair dryer and you just want to try that right now, you're more than welcome to. But we are going to start moving on to our first mountain. So on your little paint palettes, there should be a space above that you can mix colors. I'm going to be mixing a blue-green, so you could either actually use the blue and the green, or if you just want to add a little bit of yellow to your blue. I'm just going to mix a nice blue-green in here. And again, if you would rather do a different color mountains, green mountains, purple mountains, this is your painting and you guys can do whatever you want to do. Okay, so we are going to be using this technique that combines wet on wet and wet on dry that I showed you guys earlier. And I want to have more of a coffee consistency. So again, our coffee consistency, it's still pretty watered down, but we want to be able to have a nice color in here. And I'm going back and I'm working backwards to forward, and I'm just going to start with this back mountain back here. And again, I'm being really careful that I'm not touching the wet above it, just because then it will spread. Again, in a perfect world, we wouldn't need to leave that space and we could dry it in between. If you want to dab it with your towel, you're welcome to do that as well. Okay, so then I am getting some water. I'm bringing this down here. And I really like that misty effect, so as I'm bringing it down, I'm going to add a little bit more water each time. And again, I'm just leaving a tiny bit of dry space between the bottom of this mountain and the top of that one. But we don't want it to look like an obvious line, so that's why we're going to play around with adding more water to have a little bit more of a lighter value so that it gets this effect of looking like mist. Alright, so that's all I'm going to do with this back mountain. If you want to add a little bit more pigment up here at the top so it's a stronger line, that's totally fine, but this is my mountain. It's far in the back. It doesn't have very many details on it, so I'm just going to leave that there. So our next mountain, I am going to be doing a little bit more of a milk consistency, or maybe somewhere in between the coffee and the milk. We just want it a little bit darker than this further mountain so that we can have that illusion that it's closer to us. Also, I went in and I did just a little bit more detail with the rocks and so forth, because again, it's a little bit closer and so we can see more of those details. So same thing, I'm going in. Ooh, it's very green. Kind of like it though, mixing a little bit more green into it. So again, as I go in, I'm going to be moving my brush a little bit more to get some of these jarred lines to kind of show more of those mountains and those bumps. So my consistency right now, it's a little bit more tea-like than I would like. So I'm just going to grab a little bit more pigment on my brush. All right. I'm going to get some water on my brush, bring this down. I think that green ended up being a happy little accident. I think that looks really pretty in there. I know that when Bob Ross does his tutorials, he always encourages his viewers to make up stories about the place that they're painting. You could make up stories about, is this based off of Logan? Is it a unknown mountain range that you have just created in your own little world? What animals live there? What kind of trees are there? That's always fun to think about. Alright, so I'm just going to take my towel and just really gently dab the bottom of this mountain. I just went in a little bit too heavy with the water and I really want to make sure that it's dry. Plus I just really like this misty effect that I have going on in my other one. So I'm dabbing, not rubbing. All right, so we're gonna go a little bit thicker with the consistency with we're gonna be more of a milk, maybe even going into some butter consistency in here. I'm gonna use a little bit more green in with my blue. So in this one, I have little bumps coming up to represent trees. I'm not gonna worry about that quite yet. So I'm just gonna lightly bring this down. Then we're gonna go back in with more of a butter consistency. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. If you have a smaller brush, that's great. If not, no worries. You can still do it with this one. You just have a little bit more control with the smaller brush. Going in with that same color, but a little bit heavier on the pigment. So we get more of a runny, buttery consistency. Maybe when you're making cookies and you had to stick it in the microwave for a second. So art is all about illusions, right? So from far away, we can tell that these are pine trees, but from up close, it's literally just little lines. So again, I'm just making sure that this is dry so we don't have any spreading on here. I'm just gonna go in. I'm going to vary the length. I'm going to do little sections at a time because while this is still wet, I want to carry that color down so that we just don't have these random lines poking out. They look like it's integrated into our values here. Happy little trees, as my good friend Bob Ross would say. And again, I'm just lightly pulling this down. gently pulling this down. Now we've got our happy trees. So our next layer of mountain is going to be this one back here, and we get even more happy trees, and this time they're coming a little bit more into view, so they're going to be a little bit bigger, but we're still not going to have that much detail in them quite yet. So I'm just going to take my towel and just make sure that this line here is dry. When I did this, I did a combination of green and browns. You can think about what time of year is it? Is it going to be a lot of green trees? Is it going to be fall and have some red in there? Whatever you want it to be. So with this consistency, we want it to be a true butter consistency. So I'm not going to have very much pigment. I'm going to have a lot of pigment and not that much water on here. So I'm starting in the back. And this is a little tedious, but it will be worth it. And I'm just going in, doing lots of these little lines. Again, as artists, we are illusionists. Up close, it just looks like a bunch of lines, but when you stand back a few feet, you'll be able to have that illusion of it looking like trees. The average distance between a person and a painting is 5 feet. So remember to give yourself that space. If you need to stand up, take a break, step back and look at it, it will give you a new point of view. So I'm just playing around with my colors here. I'm going to add in a little bit of yellow. Just to have some variety in my trees here. Maybe some browns in here as well. I even purposely left some white spots in here just to break up our eye a little bit, give us some separation. And maybe there's just not a tree right there as you're getting closer. So whenever this happens, I'm just gonna let that happen. Let the paint be what the paint wants to be. As I get closer to the bottom, I'm going to add in some darker colors, maybe more of a true brown, just to show the difference between maybe where the sun is hitting and the shadows. I have that filled in as much as I would like it, we are going to be going in these pine trees down here. So before we do the pine trees, I'm just going to show you guys how to do them, maybe on your scrap piece of paper that we practiced on, or in the corner where we can just cut it off later. But we are going to be using a true butter consistency. So I'm talking the stick butter that you get that's really thick. We want this to be as thick as we can get it. So just a tiny bit of water, and I'm just gonna really lather on my paintbrush with pigment. Okay, so again, I'm just gonna practice over here and show you guys these pine trees. I'm going to start from the top to the bottom. That's gonna give me a little bit more control of where my tree ends and how tall it's going to be. Then I'm just going to be going left to right. And giving, again, this illusion of pine needles coming off. So maybe you have a variety of trees. Maybe some are nice and tall, some are a little bit shorter, some might be a little bit thicker as far as branches go. Go ahead and just play around with a few different trees. And once you're feeling good about it, we're gonna just go in and just do this top row here. Again, I want to encourage you guys to have a variety: tall trees, short trees, thick trees, thin trees. And this should be dry, so we shouldn't have to worry about anything bleeding over. Again, up close it just looks like a bunch of little smudges, but then when we have that distance and we have the whole thing brought together, that's when the illusion happens and we can see our forest. Got our happy trees. So we're only going to be doing this top layer of the trees. Then I'm going to show you guys a little trick to fill in the bottom, so that we don't have to be sitting here doing hundreds of trees. But again, just want to have a nice variety of height, thickness. I am so excited to see everyone's paintings, so please email them in once we're finished. Again, the email will be in the comments below, and our favorite paintings will even get a prize. And it doesn't matter if you didn't follow this exact tutorial. If you wanted to do your own thing, still send it in. We still want to see them. Or if you want to post them on Instagram and just tag King College of the Arts, and show off to your friends and family how beautiful your painting is. So I'm just going to go in here and just fill in this top left with some more trees, and then I'll show you guys filling in the rest without having to do a million trees, excuse me. If you post them on Instagram and you did follow my tutorial, I would also love it if you guys tagged me in it. I would love to see that. My Instagram is rissasart12, rissasart12. It's always so fun to see how unique everyone's turns out, and I want to see the variety, and so please do that. Alright, so we've got our top row of trees in here because nobody has time to go in and do each individual tree. That would just take a long time. We are going to go in and use a similar technique to what we were doing over here. I still want to have our left and right motions, but I'm leaving little white spaces in between just to kind of show, again, like light going through the trees. Maybe there isn't a tree in that one spot, so we don't want it to be completely solid black. We want to have these little white spaces. And it might seem silly to even go in and just even do these little brush strokes here, but when the light shines on your painting, you can really see those brush strokes. So again, we're giving that illusion that we did spend all that time going down and doing all those individual trees. Again, we are illusionists as artists. Maybe as you get down to the bottom, we've got thicker trees, we've got more trees, so maybe it is going to be a little bit more of a solid black coming in down here. Remember to keep it nice and thick. play around a little bit more with the values going on in our sky. So I am going to be taking my bigger brush. Again, a smaller one would work fine, but I'm going to be using my bigger one. And we are going to be doing a little bit more of a dry on dry technique. We don't want it completely dry. We want it a little bit more on the damp side. I'm going to get some more blue on my paintbrush. Make sure this is dry. Beautiful. I'm just going to be going in here, adding some texture. And I'm just letting the paint go where it wants to go. Having some clouds in here, or just a variety of blues in the sky. Okay, that's a nice little touch. Okay, I think this painting is finished. My favorite part is taking off the tape. If you did choose to use tape, here is a tip. Instead of just pulling it off, if you pull it off at an angle, you are going to decrease the likeliness of it ripping your paper, especially if you aren't using painter's tape. So I'm going to come in here, instead of ripping it down like this, I'm going to be pulling it at an angle, pulling it to the left instead. I just always think this part is so satisfying to see that nice clean line there. And toss them aside. Let's do this one next. If I can pick it up. Okay. So again, pulling out. Nice clean edges. Then when I get home, I'm just going to trim it so that I have, I don't know, maybe half an inch of white space here, and I can leave off my little practice trees there. But the most important part of your painting is going to be you claiming it, you signing it. If you want to use your pencil, or take a small detail brush and do it in a color down here. I always just sign my work Rissa. And then I'm going to put the year as well. Alright, so here is our finished painting. As I said earlier, you can even see the differences between the two paintings that I've done. And your painting is going to be different than mine, and that's because we are two different people. And if you're doing this with your friends, they're all going to be different. So I encourage you to see that as a positive thing, to look at, you know, all the strengths and being unique, and look at maybe the different ways that your trees turned out. Because painting isn't about just making a replica of the same exact thing over and over. We want to be able to add our own unique touch to it, right? Again, please email your paintings to the Art Senator. Again, email is going to be in the comments below. If you post it on Instagram, tag Kane College of the Arts, and also tag me. I would love for you guys to tag me if you did follow through my tutorial. Again, my Instagram is RissasArt12. But thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. I had a lot of fun. Hope it kind of helped relax you in our busy lives with everything going on, and I hope that you guys had fun. Thank you so much. Bye.